There comes a time when silence becomes sacred. When the noise that once filled your life, the expectations, the opinions, the rush, no longer feels like home. You begin to crave gentler spaces, slower mornings, quieter company. And somewhere deep inside, you whisper to yourself, maybe peace is worth more than approval. Growth doesn't always look like movement. Sometimes it's an invisible unfurling, a subtle shift in how your nervous system responds, in how your heart no longer races for the wrong things. Sometimes growth looks like stillness, like choosing not to chase, like realizing that your peace was never meant to be negotiated. So, this is for you, the one quietly changing, the one outgrowing chaos disguised as connection, the one learning that peace isn't found in what you gain, but in what you release. Let's talk about the 8 things it's okay to outgrow for your peace. Not as rules, but as gentle recognitions. Invitations to return home to yourself. 1. The version of you who needed to be liked. There was once a time you measured your worth by how others saw you. Their tone, their attention, their validation. You read faces like mirrors, searching for proof that you were enough. Psychology calls this external validation dependency. The human brain's natural but often painful wiring to associate approval with safety. When you were young, love might have felt conditional. Praise came when you performed, when you pleased, when you didn't make waves. Your nervous system learned a quiet, invisible rule. If I'm agreeable, I'll be safe. But here's what they don't tell you. Your brain isn't trying to betray you. It's trying to protect you. The prefrontal cortex and amygdala work together to anticipate rejection as danger, lighting up like an alarm whenever someone pulls away. That's not weakness. That's survival instinct. Yet peace begins the moment you learn to self-soothe that alarm. To tell your body, we're safe even if we're not liked. It's okay to outgrow the version of you who apologized for existing, who over-explained, who smiled through discomfort just to keep the peace. The real peace you seek doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being aligned. Imagine walking into a room and no longer scanning for approval, but for authenticity. Imagine choosing people who meet you where you are, not where you perform to be. That's what self-trust feels like. Quiet, steady, unshaken. Outgrowing the need to be liked isn't arrogance. It's healing your attachment to conditional love. 2. Relationships that drain instead of nourish. Some people are not bad. They're just no longer aligned with the peace you're building. You can love them and still release them. Your brain is wired to form attachments. It doesn't easily distinguish between healthy familiarity and harmful routine. Dopamine and oxytocin make even toxic bonds feel comforting. That's why walking away feels like withdrawal, not liberation. It's chemistry, not weakness. But emotional peace begins when you honor your body's signals more than its nostalgia. When you notice how your chest tightens after certain conversations, how your energy dips after certain interactions. Those are data points. Your nervous system is speaking the truth your heart already knows. Healthy relationships don't demand that you shrink. They don't confuse consistency with control. They allow space, for silence, for disagreement, for individuality. You don't have to dramatize your exit. Growth doesn't always require confrontation. Sometimes it's as quiet as drifting, slowly, respectfully, toward alignment. There's a beautiful concept in psychology called differentiation. The ability to stay connected to others while maintaining your own sense of self. That's peace. That's maturity. So, if your energy feels lighter in solitude than it does in their company, trust that truth. Not everyone you outgrow was meant to walk your entire path. Some were lessons in boundaries. Others were mirrors that revealed what you no longer need. You are allowed to love people from afar and still choose yourself up close. 3. The habit of over-explaining yourself. Once upon a time, you thought understanding equaled safety. You believed that if people just knew your heart, they'd never misunderstand your silence, your withdrawal, your no. But peace doesn't live in constant explanation. It lives in inner clarity. Psychologically, the urge to over-explain often stems from chronic invalidation. When your emotions were dismissed or minimized, your mind began to equate explanation with survival. You learned to justify your feelings, so they'd be taken seriously. But now, your peace asks for something different. Stillness. The mature nervous system doesn't seek to control perception. It seeks to maintain calm regardless of it. There's power in brevity. In saying, "This isn't for me," without a 10-sentence defense. In decline without guilt. In trusting that your self-awareness doesn't need an audience to be real. When you stop over-explaining, you stop outsourcing your truth. Peaceful people don't need to be understood by everyone. They need to be understood by themselves. 4. The constant need to be productive. Somewhere along the way, rest became guilt. You equated stillness with laziness, leisure with loss. You forgot that your nervous system was never designed to run endlessly. In neuroscience, we talk about the default mode network, the part of your brain that activates when you're at rest, daydreaming, or simply being. It's where creativity, reflection, and emotional integration happen. Without it, you can achieve much but understand little. That's why burnout doesn't only drain your energy, it numbs your insight. It's okay to outgrow the idea that you must always be on. You're not a machine. You're an ecosystem. You need moments of nothingness for your inner world to breathe. Hustle culture taught you to value visibility over vitality. But peace teaches you that being is enough. The most important work sometimes happens in the unseen. When you sit with your thoughts, when you feel your emotions instead of escaping them, when you remember that you're not behind, you're healing. Your worth is not in what you produce. It's in what you nurture. And the most beautiful growth is often quiet. 5. The fear of disappointing others. You were taught to be kind, but sometimes kindness turned into self-abandonment. You became the peacekeeper, the helper, the one who made sure everyone else was okay, even when you weren't. Psychologists call this fawning, a trauma response where you appease to avoid conflict. It's the nervous system's way of saying, if I make them happy, I'll be safe. But your body pays the price. The constant yes floods your system with cortisol. Over time, you begin to live in quiet resentment. Smiling on the outside, aching on the inside. Peace asks for a new rhythm, one where love is mutual, not sacrificial. You can disappoint others and still be good. You can set boundaries and still be kind. You can say no and still be loving. Boundaries are not walls. They're instructions for healthy connection. The irony is people who truly love you won't need you to betray yourself to prove it. They'll respect your honesty because it allows the relationship to be real. Disappointment isn't the end of love. Sometimes, it's the beginning of authenticity. So breathe. You're not here to manage everyone's comfort. You're here to honor your truth. That's the kindest thing you can do. For them, and for you. 6. The attachment to old identities. You've changed, even if you haven't said it out loud yet. Maybe you used to be the life of the party, but now quiet mornings feel like poetry. Maybe you used to crave chaos, but now you crave calm. Maybe you've simply evolved. But your mind clings to the old narrative, because it feels safer to stay consistent than to admit transformation. In psychology, this is called cognitive dissonance. The tension that arises when who you are no longer matches who you used to be. It's okay. You're not losing yourself. You're meeting yourself. We are meant to outgrow identities. The achiever, the caretaker, the perfectionist, the rescuer. These roles protected us once. They helped us survive. But survival patterns can't sustain peace. It takes bravery to say, that version of me served her purpose, but I'm ready to let her rest. Growth is not betrayal. It's evolution. Neuroscience tells us that the brain constantly rewires. Neuroplasticity. Meaning your thoughts, habits, and emotions can literally reshape who you are. You are not static. You are a living mosaic of everything you've endured and integrated. So, release the guilt for not being who you once were. The sunset doesn't apologize for not being noon. 7. The belief that healing must be perfect. Healing is not linear. It's cyclical, messy, human. Some days, you'll feel light and grounded. Other days, you'll fall back into old thought loops. Worry, comparison, self-doubt. That doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're alive. Your brain stores emotional memory in the hippocampus and amygdala, and triggers are simply reminders of unresolved neural pathways. They resurface not to punish you, but to invite awareness. Every time you respond differently, slower, kinder, more consciously, you're rewiring your brain towards safety. Healing is less about erasing pain and more about responding to it with understanding. You're allowed to relapse into overthinking, to cry unexpectedly, to still miss people who hurt you. These aren't setbacks, they're echoes. They fade each time you meet them with compassion instead of criticism. Perfection is a myth built by fear. Progress is the rhythm of love. So, on the days when you feel like you're back at square one, remember this. Healing isn't a straight road, it's a spiral staircase. You're not in the same place. You're just meeting a familiar lesson from a higher level of awareness. That's what peace feels like. Not the absence of triggers, but the ability to move through them without losing your center. 8. The habit of chasing closure. You may never get the apology you deserved. You may never fully understand why they left, why they said what they did, why it ended the way it did. But peace comes when you realize that closure isn't something they give you. It's something you create. Psychologically, the human brain craves completion. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. Unfinished stories stay active in the mind, demanding attention. That's why we replay conversations, reread texts, and linger in loops. The mind seeks resolution because it associates it with relief. But closure doesn't come from answers. It comes from acceptance. From the quiet decision to stop negotiating with the past. It's okay to not understand everything. Some chapters end without clarity because you're meant to build it yourself. You can grieve without hating. You can move forward without knowing. You can wish them peace and still choose distance. True closure is inner calm. When the story no longer controls your emotional weather. Sometimes the most powerful goodbye is silence. The kind that doesn't seek validation, only freedom. The science of letting go. You are not broken for needing peace. You are simply recalibrating. Your body, your mind, your spirit. All of them are systems seeking regulation. When you let go of what disturbs that balance, you're not being selfish. You're being neurologically intelligent. When your life quiets, your nervous system finally has space to rest. Your prefrontal cortex begins to re-engage, making it easier to think clearly, to plan, to love safely. Your vague nerve, the body's peacekeeper, activates, slowing your heartbeat, deepening your breath, and signaling your body. We're safe now. Peace isn't a destination. It's a physiological state. A body that no longer confuses chaos with connection. And as you outgrow what no longer fits, the people, the habits, the fears, you begin to notice subtle miracles. You stop explaining yourself so much. You stop chasing what's unavailable. You stop fighting for things that hurt more than they heal. You start returning to your own rhythm, your own boundaries, your own gentleness. Outgrowing isn't loss. It's refined. It's the soul's quiet evolution toward peace. And if you ever doubt that you're making progress, look at how much more tender your reactions have become. How you pause instead of panic. How you observe your thoughts instead of drowning in them. That's not a weakness. That's integration. You've grown softer, not smaller. Wiser, not colder. You've learned that peace isn't found in what you control, but in what you release. There's a calm that comes when you stop running. Not because the world stopped being hard, but because you stop being at war with yourself. You'll lose some people along the way. You'll lose old versions of yourself too. But what you'll gain, presence, clarity, self-trust, is worth every quiet goodbye. So here's the truth. It's okay to outgrow what once felt essential. It's okay to be the one who changes first. It's okay to choose peace, even when no one understands. Because one day, you'll wake up in a life that finally feels like yours. Not perfect, but peaceful. And that will be the moment you realize you didn't lose yourself in the process. You came home to yourself.